All right, so you are an academic or researcher or someone who went that non-academic path, and you want to make more visual presentations, but there's this little voice inside you saying, hold on, what if your professional audience doesn't like it? As a professional, the last thing we want to be called is unprofessional. So I get why you're asking, and it's why I wanted to make this video so I can give the answer. Hello, I'm Dr. Echo Rivera, and welcome to my channel, More Than PowerPoint. I help academics and researchers and those who went that non-academic path learn how to create visually engaging presentations. And I run a professional development program called the Presentation Skills Masterclass. It's a super fun way to learn how to make engaging professional presentations. And in that first course, people start to learn how to use less text and more visuals. And a really common question people have at that stage is this almost like panic moment of, wait, but my professional audience is used to text, and they get stuck on that. So I am here to tell you a big secret about professional audiences that academia doesn't want you to know. But like a lot of things I talk about, you won't believe me if I just tell you the answer. So we have to set the stage a little bit and make sure that we are all on the same page about what the goal of a presentation is. What do we hope to accomplish? In its simplest form, the goal of a presentation is to get people to pay attention, understand, remember, and use the information in the way that you want. This applies to every single presentation. If you are doing class lectures, you want them to use the information to do well on the assignments or assessments. If you're doing a conference presentation, you want people to understand and maybe use or cite your work. If you're presenting to policymakers, you want them to make an evidence-based decision using your data, okay? I could keep going on, but I'm not going to. The other goal of a presentation, especially if you're worried about the idea of professionalism, is that the presentation will advance your career and or the topic, field, discipline, whatever idea you're actually trying to promote. For example, maybe you want your audience to use evidence to create evidence-based policy. Well, that means your presentation is also advancing just the idea of evidence-based policy, right? So that's kind of what I'm talking about. And again, you want it to be good for your career. That just makes sense. Well, if you want any chance of making that happen, you need to care about the audience experience, because the audience must enjoy the presentation. They must have a positive experience with your presentation to meet that goal. If they think that presentation is boring, guess what? That means they think you are boring. That's not good for your career or the topic. The experience they have with that presentation will be how they define and interpret you and, again, the topic. I'm not saying that's fair, but I'm here to share with you what happens. So my definition of a professional presentation that I want to put out there is one that meets both of these goals. Now, the reason I'm going on about this in my video is because most people, when they're doing the status quo style presentations, assume they're meeting these goals. Or honestly, what's probably more common is that they're just not even thinking about it. They're just going about their business and doing what everyone else is doing. But I really want to push back on that. So for the rest of the video, I will be using the term unprofessional to talk about presentations that fail to effectively communicate information or data and or create a negative experience for most of the audience. I say most because look, sometimes haters gonna hate and you can't make every single person happy. So it's a qualifier. Okay. I will also be using the term professional presentation for ones that effectively communicate information and data and is a positive experience for most of the audience. Okay, so notice that right away I am basing this categorization of professional versus unprofessional on outcomes. And I just want to point out that I was very intentional about using the word and in that professional category. So you must effectively communicate the information and it's a positive experience. It's not enough to just have a positive experience. I think a lot of people will critique those of us out there trying to make visual presentations as though we're just trying to do like entertainment. And so I want to sort of like really make it clear that that's not what I'm talking about here. Like step one, communicate data, information, and facts. Step two, make it a positive experience. Okay, moving on. So what are the outcomes of a visual presentation versus the standard academic delivery presentation, also known as SAD presentation? Well, let's go through each of these and see how well they do on my fancy new checklist. All right, let's define the status quo, shall we? Again, this is the SAD way of presenting, standard academic delivery, which involves walls of text, slide after slide, little to no visuals, or visuals that are neutral and boring, data dumps, and confusing graphs, okay? You know that already because it's probably what you're used to seeing, and it's probably what you've been taught to do. So what are the outcomes and audience experience in a SAD presentation? Well, a SAD presentation is inaccessible and bores the audience, confuses them, overwhelms them, or underwhelms them. That in no way could count as effective communication. A confusing presentation means people aren't understanding the information. A boring presentation means they're not even paying attention. An underwhelming presentation means they're not going to use the information, right? And notice I'm saying the word audience here because it's universal across audiences. I am not just talking about students. I am talking about your peers at that conference. I am talking about funders who might be watching your funding presentation. I am talking about policymakers. I'm talking about stakeholders. I'm talking about everyone. By the way, if you are shocked to hear that, the status quo is inaccessible, I have a whole video series about that. So be sure to check that out next. Okay, so just stop and think critically for a second here. Are those the faces a professional presentation should be causing? I don't think so. And quite frankly, I think it's unprofessional to make your audience feel that way. So using our checklist, status quo presentations neither effectively communicate nor create a positive experience. It's the opposite. They fail to communicate effectively and create a negative experience for the audience, which means it is unprofessional. Let's contrast that with visually engaging presentations. So let's start by defining what these look like. Because again, people really only start even wondering about this when they are learning how to create a presentation that has minimal text on each slide, lots of visuals, photos, icons, custom figures, models, etc. Visuals that are actually effective and powerful. And a presentation that is well organized, has a narrative, and has easy to follow data visualizations. The outcome of a visually engaging presentation is that it is accessible and interesting, clear, easy to follow, and powerful. An interesting presentation helps people pay attention. A presentation that is clear and easy to follow helps people understand the data. And a presentation that is powerful makes it much more likely to be remembered and used later on. And again, if you want more details about why this is actually the more accessible approach, check out my videos on that. Okay. Now this time, when we ask ourselves, are these the faces a professional presentation should cause? This time the answer is a resounding yes. This is what I think a professional presentation should accomplish. I think it's professional to create an accessible presentation that effectively communicates data and creates a positive experience for your audience. So yeah, that's why I say the opposite is true. With a visually engaging presentation, we aren't failing at communicating, and we're definitely not creating a bad experience. It's the opposite. We communicate effectively and create a positive experience, which means it is a professional presentation. Hey, Dr. Echo Rivera here, and before I continue busting myths and addressing your hesitations, I just wanted to say that if you are starting to see that you would like to learn how to create more visually engaging presentations because you are seeing how they are more professional than boring walls of text, then I would love to invite you to join my Presentation Skills Masterclass program. This presentation skills training is for professionals who present to professionals. I have a PhD and in social science and psychology, and that's where I learned these skills, and that's where I practiced and honed them, and that's where I gained a reputation as an effective communicator. And I want all academics and researchers and evaluators to be able to share their data in ways that help actually get them taken seriously. Because for some reason, there is this myth or concern out there that you won't be taken seriously unless you have walls of text. So not true, I promise. So if you're interested, make sure that you check out the link below and learn more about my program. Okay, back to busting some myths. So this whole myth about how a wall of text is professional, whereas an easy to understand visual presentation is unprofessional, makes no sense. There's no universe where that could possibly be true. Like, how sad has academia become when people are legitimately worried they'll be viewed as unprofessional for creating an objectively better presentation? Because again, the opposite is true. I cannot say that enough. In my opinion, this standard way of presenting is highly unprofessional. It is the well-designed, visually engaging, properly storyboarded presentation that is professional. And by the way, mini rant coming here, because for me to say this is kind of a big deal, because I think the term professional actually sucks and is weaponized against people from historically marginalized groups or anyone who is trying to do something better or different, all just to keep them in line and to support the status quo. And I kind of cringe every time I use that word, but it's the word people use when talking to me, so I'm using it so that people know I'm actually responding to their question about professionalism. But in my opinion, we really need to stop doing this, and we need to stop using professional as a weapon to support the status quo. I mean, literally, there are still people out there who think having tattoos and piercings is unprofessional and will give people a hard time and call them unprofessional if they don't cover up for a conference presentation or something. That is just ridiculous. And it's part of why I wanted to make this video, because a lot of people are really messing up what they consider professional versus unprofessional. So I just want to let you know that outside of this video, and outside of the context where someone specifically asks me what makes a professional presentation, I personally do not use these terms to categorize things. I use effective or ineffective when talking about presentation slides. I use accessible or inaccessible or engaging or not engaging. Like, when it comes to presentation design, those are more helpful and actionable terms than professional versus unprofessional. Because in my view, if we're going to use the word unprofessional, it should be more about behavior and attitude and how you treat somebody. For example, here is a non-exhaustive list of behaviors and attitudes that I think are unprofessional in a presentation context. Sexist, racist, ableist, etc. jokes, also known as punching down humor. Unprofessional, okay? Being mean or rude to the audience, sexually harassing people from your audience or panel members or just people in general. Not using a microphone, not scripting or practicing and just winging it, going on a lot of tangents and generally having a major mismatch between your slides and your verbal speech, or just in general creating a super inaccessible presentation while knowing it and not caring. Because it's one thing to just not know how to do better, or it's one thing if you're trying but it's just not working. What I'm talking about here is this attitude of my students should suffer. If they want the info, they're the ones who should meet me halfway or, whatever. You know what I mean, right? It's this antagonistic view of the audience as a justification for creating walls of text. Okay, other things. Refusing reasonable accommodations that you could actually do. Taking more time than you were given, or being late to your own presentation. And again, sometimes you can't help it, but there are people who are just systematically always late, right? Or at a conference, asking a question that is not a question or just like hogging the Q&A to bloviate about yourself, okay? That, to me, is a real list of unprofessional behavior in a presentation context, because it's more objectively the definition of unprofessional, in my opinion, right? You're just like rude and obnoxious. You just like don't care about other people. And again, it's failing to effectively communicate the information and causes a negative experience too. So it just seems so clear to me that this is what should be considered unprofessional. But oh, the audacity of trying to be creative and engaging and accessible. That's unprofessional? Give me a break. But what about you? I've already drawn my line in the sand. I've already decided how I define professionalism. That I think accessibility and a positive audience experience while also effectively communicating data and facts, that's what I think a professional presentation is. But tell me your definition in the comments below. Because now it is your turn to decide what professional means to you. If you're on board with what I'm saying here and how I define professional versus unprofessional, then you absolutely should stop presenting the sad way and either start or continue to make visually engaging presentations. Now, hopefully you are at least convinced that a visually engaging presentation is more professional. And if you're still watching this video, there's probably a good chance of that. So thank you. Hello. But maybe, just maybe, you're still worried about how other people are going to react. Or maybe you were convinced before even watching this video, and I've been preaching to the choir so far. So again, thank you for watching. But maybe this is what you were looking for all along: how to respond to other people who aren't convinced. For example, people have said to me, you know, Echo, I agree with you, but they're used to it. My professional audience is just used to text. So I'm worried about not having a wall of text on my slides. So I hear this a lot, and my reaction is universally the same. Like, okay, and? I mean, we all have new experiences all the time. It's part of life. There's tons of things that we aren't used to because we haven't experienced them, but once we do, we love it. They are adults. If they truly are professional people, then they should have the skills to experience something new and be okay. And besides, I can finally reveal the secret about professional audiences that academia doesn't want you to know. The whole purpose of this video. What is that secret? Professionals hate death by PowerPoint too. Professionals do not like when a speaker puts a wall of text on their slides and just reads it to them. Professionals do not like presentations that are text, clip art, smart art, and overwhelming data dumps. They hate it too. There, now you know the secret. I've been running professional development on presentation skills for like, I don't know, 7 years at the time of making this video. And I'm always checking in with people I've trained. And the number one thing my trainees say is that their professional audience came up to them after the presentation and said, that was the best presentation I have ever seen. It was easy to follow. It was accessible. It was engaging. I loved it. So yeah, they're not used to it, which means you are going to be like this shining bright star, amazing, mind-blowing communicator who actually shared data in a way they enjoyed for once. When everyone else at that conference, or every other professor in your department, or every other academic evaluator or researcher those service providers have listened to, when every other one is death by PowerPoint, you are going to be this breath of fresh air that they will love and remember. You don't have to take my word for it. You can go to my LinkedIn profile and check out recommendations that my training participants have left. I only train professionals, researchers, academics, state and federal staff, evaluation centers, grantees, state coalitions, et cetera, right? Like, these are my people. They are professionals and they present to professional audiences. Here's one I want to highlight. I have a Twitter graphic going out right now about how the statement, visual slides aren't professional, is a red flag advice to ignore. And a professor who took the first course in my masterclass commented, totally unprompted, and here is what she said. Ever since I started following Echo's guidance on how to avoid death by PowerPoint, people have come up to me after my presentations to say how much they like my slides. I like them too, but it's nice to hear it from others. And she's out there talking about things like housing policy. You can't get a more professional context than that. I don't cram testimonials into every video, I swear. I just know it takes more than me just saying this, right? Like I understand that you need proof that other academics and researchers and professionals are constantly being told that their visual presentation is professional and the best they've ever seen. And guess what? If for some reason you are still worried about it being too different, go check out my training video on how to make custom handouts, because you can use that first page to write a little introduction about how your presentation will be different. And you can even add a slide to your presentation where you acknowledge that too, because people they don't like to be shocked. And if you can prepare them, again, if you're worried, you don't have to do this. But if you're worried, that will pretty much cover it. And honestly, it could even build curiosity. They'll be like, ooh, well, what's going to make this different? And that can almost get them invested in paying attention. So it's yeah, so what if it's new? They will love it. You treat them like adults, give them maybe a 5-second heads up so they are ready for it, and you'll be good to go. The other common hesitation people have is this worry that their professional audience wants all the data on the slides. That is not true. If you can't actually walk them through the data on the slides, it should not be on the slides. Having tons of data in your presentation that you can't even talk about does not make you seem like some awesome researcher who has lots of data. It makes you seem like you didn't prepare your presentation enough and you are skipping through important material. That makes them trust you less, not more. Professionals are busy and they want you to present the highlights so they get the big takeaway. And then they want transparency about the data not presented and how to access the rest of the data. Guess what? This is also where custom handouts can really help you. You can always use your custom handout to include data not in the slides and/or instructions on how they can go and read the full report and get the, 50 pages of data tables or read the journal article or whatever. Trust me, we've all been there. Professionals understand that you have more data to share than you could possibly squeeze into a 20-minute or even 50-minute presentation. They are counting on you to give them the highlights, the takeaways, and empower them to read up and get the rest of the details if they want them. The other thing I hear a lot is the sentiment that, but my audience, my professional audience, they want the facts. That's just kind of their response to this. And I'm always okay, interesting assumption in there, because it's kind of saying, if it's visually engaging, that means there's no facts or not enough facts. It's really important to remember that the status quo is very powerful. And a lot of people are invested in maintaining the status quo simply because they do not want to change. And one of the most effective tools that people use to maintain the status quo is establishing false dichotomies. So watch out for the people who use coded language to insinuate that you need to choose between design or data, between storytelling or facts, between engaging or professional, because these are false dichotomies. In reality, all of this works together in a blended way. Creating engaging presentations involves using all of the above. You do not have to make a choice between these. You use them all to your advantage. And that's what I teach you to do in my professional development program. In my training, you learn how to blend all of that together in a really easy and seamless way, so you can communicate your data effectively while also creating a positive experience for any audience you're presenting to. You can and should be blending all of that together if you want a professional presentation that makes an impact. And finally, my personal favorite is when people who have created a visually engaging presentation say, "Okay, Echo, but what about this? I was literally told that it was unprofessional. Someone legit used those words about my presentation." So first, if you did something from that list, then that was fair. If you had a visually engaging presentation, but then also had some terrible punching down humor, You deserve to be called unprofessional for that. But if you didn't do something on that list, or, something like actually unprofessional where you were rude or belligerent, then I guess maybe I'm the first one who's ever told you this, but people lie. They lie to themselves and they lie to other people. I'm working on a video about this specifically, so I'll post the link in the description whenever that's done. But what I can say now is that this is most likely to happen when you are speaking truth to power. What might have happened is just you being there or your content challenged their attitudes or behaviors or values in some way, which made them have all kind of feels that they didn't want to feel, okay? And maybe they didn't understand why they're feeling that way, or they know why, but they know they can't say it out loud because it's wrong. So what do? Well, they know that in academic culture or similar cultures like federal and state departments, they know they can weaponize that word professionalism. That way they can maintain the status quo of their individual thoughts and feelings, or the status quo of whatever it is you're challenging. Now, YouTube is not a great place to add nuance, but if you made it to the end of this video and you're still here, that's a sign you're actually dedicated to learning this, so I might as well go ahead and add some nuance to this checklist we created. First of all, again, that's part of why I said it's important to create a positive experience for most of the audience. Haters gonna hate. That's just how it is. But there is an extra layer here. If most of your audience has a negative experience because you're speaking truth to power, and the people who benefit from the system or status quo are in the audience, well, if you effectively communicated and tried to make it a positive experience, you still were professional. And the fact that they had a negative experience, that's on them. That's not on you. So that is one time where even if the outcome isn't what you wanted, it might not actually be your fault, because it's just that the status quo is powerful and you are trying to change it. So the important part here is you knowing you legit did your best, because at some point it is up to other people to have an open heart and an open mind. Now, quite frankly, my favorite people are those who are speaking truth to power and who are trying to end systems of oppression, trying to create a more equitable society, trying to fight for the health of this planet. It's an uphill battle. And I want to help you communicate effectively because you're actually trying to make things better and change the status quo. And I want you to be able to give a presentation where even when people push back, it was professional. You are proud of the work you did, and you won't let them gaslight you. You won't let them weaponize that word against you. You rocked it. You did everything you could to communicate that effectively in a way that, could be a positive experience. So if you are speaking truth to power and want some support with that, I am here to help you. I hope to see you in my program. Alrighty, so before we wrap up, everyone is always asking me, what I use to create my videos and my presentations, and this whole video was just a PowerPoint presentation. Death by PowerPoint is not PowerPoint's fault. I just have an Office 365 home and personal subscription. No, that's not an affiliate. They don't sponsor me. They don't even know who I am. So I'm just sharing what I use and what I recommend. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about my unique approach to presentation skills training and the system for how you can create better presentations without needing more prep time, then check out my free training video. The link is below. All right, we will wrap up here. Hopefully you found this video at least either eye-opening or extremely validating. Either way, please like and subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified when my next video comes out. And if you know anyone who is struggling with the idea of whether their presentation is or will be professional, please share this video with them. And finally, I really, really like when I can create videos that answer common questions people have. So be sure to comment with questions or video ideas. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.